The grand city of Zokar Prime stretched across the horizon, its towering spires glowing under the twin moons. The sky shimmered with the soft hum of hovering airships, their silver hulls reflecting the city's golden lights. For Ryan Hale, the human diplomat, this was more than just another diplomatic mission. It was a moment in history. The Zokari were a proud and fierce warrior race, known for their strength and discipline. For centuries, they had ruled the battlefield, but even they had faced the threat of destruction. A war had nearly wiped them out, until humanity arrived. The humans had turned the tide, fighting beside the Zokari and proving their worth. Now, as a sign of respect, the Zokari queen had invited a human for a private meeting. That human was Ryan Hale. As he stepped out of his diplomatic shuttle, a squad of Zokari honor guards stood waiting. They were tall, their dark exoskeleton-like armor gleaming under the city's lights. Their sharp eyes followed his every movement, but there was no hostility, only curiosity and respect. "Human diplomat," one of them spoke in a deep voice. "The queen awaits you." Ryan gave a small nod. "Then let's not keep her waiting." The guards turned and led him forward, their heavy footsteps echoing against the polished metal floor. Ryan walked with calm confidence, though his mind raced with questions. The invitation had come suddenly, with little explanation. The queen, Veldzora, was known for her wisdom, but also for her unpredictability. No human had ever been granted a private audience with her before. Why now? The massive doors to the throne chamber slid open with a low hum. Ryan stepped inside and was immediately struck by the grandeur of the place. The walls were adorned with ancient Zokari battle tapestries, depicting their greatest victories. A massive skylight above bathed the chamber in soft blue light from the twin moons. At the center of the room stood Queen Veldzora. She was unlike any Zokari Ryan had seen before. Her presence was commanding, her tall, armored form wrapped in flowing robes of deep crimson and gold. A ceremonial crown of obsidian and silver rested on her head, signifying her status as ruler. Her piercing yellow eyes studied him with quiet intensity. Ryan bowed slightly, a diplomatic gesture of respect. "Your Majesty." For a moment, the queen said nothing. Then, a slight smile touched her lips. "You are not afraid," she observed. Ryan met her gaze evenly. "I have no reason to be." The queen let out a soft hum of amusement. "Most beings tremble when they stand before me, even some of my own kind." Ryan allowed himself a small smile. "Then I suppose humans are different." The queen's expression turned thoughtful. "Yes, that is what we have learned in war. Humans are different." She took a slow step forward, the soft rustle of her robes filling the silence. "Do you know why you are here, Ryan Hale?" Ryan kept his posture steady. "I assume it is to discuss the future of our alliance." Veldzora tilted her head slightly. "That is part of it, but not the reason you were summoned tonight." A flicker of uncertainty passed through Ryan's mind, but he kept his expression neutral. "Then I would be honored to hear the true reason." The queen regarded him for a long moment before speaking. "You have done a great service to my people. Without humans, the Zokari might not exist today. We do not forget such debts." Ryan nodded. "Humanity values its allies." Veldzora's eyes gleamed. "And so do we. Among the Zokari, when someone performs a great deed, one that ensures the survival of our kind, they are given a gift of honor." Ryan frowned slightly. "Gift of honor." The queen's voice was calm, but there was a weight to her words. "It is an ancient tradition, a reward given to the greatest warriors and leaders. And tonight, Ryan Hale, I offer it to you." Ryan held her gaze, his mind racing. He had studied Zokari customs, but this gift of honor was something he had never encountered before. Whatever it was clearly something important, something sacred. He took a careful breath. "I am honored, Your Majesty. But may I ask, what exactly is this gift?" The queen's expression remained unreadable. Then, In a voice both quiet and firm, she answered, "One night with me." The chamber fell into complete silence. Ryan blinked, processing her words. The Queen's golden eyes never wavered. There was no teasing, no sign that this was a joke. She meant exactly what she said. 1,000 thoughts rushed through Ryan's mind at once. What did this mean? Was it a test? A political maneuver? Or was this truly a Zokari tradition? He knew one thing for certain. This night was about to become far more complicated than he had ever expected. For a long moment, Ryan Hale stood in silence, his mind racing. One night with me. The Queen's words echoed in his thoughts. He had come expecting a political discussion, perhaps a formal agreement between humans and Zokari. Instead, he had been offered something he didn't fully understand, a gift of honor. His diplomatic training told him to choose his words carefully. The wrong response could offend the Queen, damage relations, or worse, put humanity's alliance with the Zokari at risk. Ryan kept his posture calm. Your Majesty, I am honored by your offer. But if I may ask, what does this gift truly mean? Queen Veldzora studied him, her golden eyes sharp but unreadable. You are cautious, she observed. That is wise. She turned and walked slowly across the chamber, the long train of her crimson robe flowing behind her. Ryan waited, sensing that she wanted him to listen before speaking again. This gift is not given lightly, the Queen continued. It is a tradition from ancient times. When a warrior proves their worth, not just in battle, but in honor, they are granted a night in the presence of the ruler. Ryan nodded slightly, but he still didn't have the full answer. And what happens during this night? Veldzora stopped and looked at him. Many things, she said. Stories are shared. Wisdom is passed down. In some cases, the future of our people is shaped. She tilted her head. What did you expect? Ryan hesitated for a fraction of a second. I didn't want to assume. The Queen let out a quiet, amused breath. That is another reason I chose you. She stepped closer, her gaze steady. I have studied humans. I have watched how you fight, how you think, how you speak. You are different from us, yet you understand the value of respect. Ryan met her eyes. Respect is important in every culture. Veldzora gave a small nod. Indeed, and because of that, I offer you this choice. Accept the gift of honor, or refuse it. Ryan knew this was a test. He could feel the weight of the decision. Accepting the gift would mean stepping into something unknown, something that could change the course of human-Zokari relations forever. Refusing it could be seen as disrespectful, but it could also protect him from making a mistake. His instincts told him that Veldzora was not trying to trap him. There was no trick, no hidden agenda. This was a moment of trust. Ryan took a slow breath. Then I accept. The Queen's expression did not change, but something in her posture shifted. Approval, perhaps. Very well, she said. Follow me. A walk through the past. Ryan followed as Veldzora led him through a side door of the throne chamber. The passageway was dimly lit, the walls carved with ancient symbols that glowed faintly. The air felt different here, heavier, older. This place, the Queen said, her voice quieter now, is where the rulers of the Zokari reflect on the past. Ryan glanced at the symbols as they walked. Some looked like battle scenes, others like moments of peace. Your history? He asked. Veldzora nodded. Yes, every ruler must understand the past before they shape the future. They reached a wide, open chamber. A large circular platform stood in the center, surrounded by floating energy orbs that pulsed softly. The Queen stepped forward and gestured for Ryan to join her. What is this? Ryan asked. A memory chamber, Veldzora said. A place where the past can be seen. Ryan hesitated. You mean, literally? The Queen's lips curved slightly. You will see for yourself. She extended her hand. Ryan hesitated only a moment before placing his palm against hers. A sudden warmth spread through his skin. The energy orbs flickered, then flared to life. Visions of a dying world. Rian's vision blurred. When it cleared, he was no longer in the chamber. He stood on a battlefield. The ground was cracked and scorched. Smoke rose in thick columns, and the air smelled of ash. In the distance, Zokari warriors fought against monstrous, insect-like creatures. Their weapons clashed. Their war cries echoed in the sky. Ryan turned and saw Velzora, but not as she was now. This was a memory from the past. She was younger, her armor dented, her blade covered in dark blood. She fought with everything she had, but her forces were losing. Ryan felt the emotions around him. Fear, desperation, pain. The Zokari had been on the brink of extinction. Then the sky shattered. Through the smoke, Ryan saw the arrival of human warships. Blazing energy blasts rained down, driving the enemy back. Human soldiers landed alongside the Zokari, fighting beside them. Together, they turned the tide of battle. The memory faded, and Ryan was back in the chamber. His breathing was heavy, his mind still processing what he had seen. Velzora's voice was quiet but firm. Now you understand. Ryan met her gaze. This is why the Zokari honor humans. She nodded. Without you, we would have fallen. This gift I offer is not just a tradition. It is a bridge. A way for our people to share what matters most. Ryan took a deep breath. Then I will honor it. Velzora held his gaze for a long moment before finally saying, "Then let the night begin." Ryan Hale stood in the center of the glowing chamber, still processing the visions of the past. The weight of the Zokari people's history pressed down on him like a heavy stone. He had seen their darkest hour, their near extinction, and the moment when humans had stepped in to help them survive. Now he was facing something even more difficult. The night ahead, a night that held the promise of deep cultural understanding, and perhaps even a deeper connection between him and the Zokari queen herself. Velzora stood a few steps away, her crimson robes shifting with the soft movements of her body. The room around them hummed with energy from the glowing orbs, casting an ethereal light. It felt like the air was charged with something unspoken, something ancient. For a moment, the queen said nothing. She merely observed him, her sharp yellow eyes focused. Ryan couldn't help but feel that she was weighing his every move, every word, as though she had been preparing for this moment for a long time. Ryan's voice broke the silence. "Your Majesty, I have seen your people's struggles, their losses, and their victories. It is an honor to understand it all, to see the sacrifices they made for survival." Velzora's gaze softened, and she nodded slowly. "You see more than most. You have accepted the gift of honor. But the true meaning of it is deeper than just knowledge of the past. It is a connection, a bond between our people. It is the same bond we share with the universe itself." Ryan took a step forward, curiosity rising in his chest. A bond. The queen extended her hand toward him, a gesture that was as unexpected as it was intimate. "Yes, I offer you this bond, a sharing of souls. It is not physical, but it is something far more profound." Ryan hesitated, feeling the weight of her words. He had never heard of anything like this before. It wasn't something his training had prepared him for. But something inside him urged him to trust her, to accept this strange and powerful offer. "Will it hurt?" he asked, trying to mask the nervousness in his voice. Velzora's smile was faint but reassuring. "No, it will feel different, but it is not painful. It will allow you to see the Zokari through our eyes, to experience our lives as we do, and perhaps for the first time, to truly understand why we are the way we are." Ryan's heart raced as he stepped closer to her. There was something mesmerizing about the idea of this bond, this shared connection. He had already seen the history of the Zokari. Now he would feel it. As his hand reached toward hers, the air around them seemed to shimmer. The moment their palms met, a sudden rush of energy surged through him. It was as if the entire room had vanished, leaving only the two of them in a swirling vortex of light and sensation. Ryan's mind was flooded with images and feelings, some familiar, some alien. He saw the first Zokari warrior raise a weapon, felt the thrill of victory in battle, the pride of winning for one's people. But then, there were the darker moments, the devastating wars, the cries of the wounded, the fear of an entire race on the brink of annihilation. He felt Velzora's pain as her people lost their homeworld, as their cities burned, and as the warriors she had once fought alongside fell one by one. But there was something else, a fierce determination, a refusal to accept defeat. It burned brightly within her, like a fire that could not be put out. Through the bond, Ryan saw her as a leader, not just a queen, but a protector, a mother to her people. The weight of responsibility was immense. He could feel her thoughts, her decisions, the sleepless nights spent wondering if the Zokari would ever survive. And then he felt the human side of the story, the arrival of humanity, the first contact, and the way the humans had fought beside the Zokari. The trust they had built, not through politics, but through shared struggles. He felt his own emotions surge, pride in his species, but also something deeper, a deep connection to Velzora herself. The connection between them deepened, and for the briefest moment, Ryan understood something profound. The Zokari were not just a people of war and honor. They were a people who had learned to survive against all odds. And humanity, in turn, was not just a species of technology and exploration. They were a species that understood what it meant to fight for something greater than oneself. The connection between them started to fade, slowly but surely, and Ryan was left standing there, breathless and overwhelmed. His mind and body were still tingling with the aftereffects of the bond. He had seen the heart of the Zokari people, and he had shared something intimate with their queen, a moment of true understanding. Velzora was quiet for a long time, her eyes closed as she seemed to process the connection they had shared. When she finally opened her eyes, they were softer than before, the sharpness gone. There was something like respect in her gaze now. "You see, human," she said, her voice low and steady. "Our bond is not one of domination or conquest. It is a bond of survival, of mutual respect. In that, we are not so different after all." Ryan could only nod, his voice catching in his throat. "I understand now. I truly do." Velzora smiled, the first genuine smile he had seen from her. "Then you have honored me with your presence tonight, Ryan Hale. And for that, I thank you." He stood there for a moment, letting the weight of the night settle around him. The bond had changed him in ways he couldn't fully describe yet, but one thing was certain: the future of humanity and the Zokari was no longer a question. It was a promise, forged in the heart of this night. The night had fallen deeper, and the soft hum of energy orbs in the chamber now seemed almost silent in comparison to the growing tension that lingered between Ryan and Velzora. The bond they had shared was still fresh in his mind. He could still feel the ripples of it, like a soft echo in the back of his thoughts. But now, something else was shifting in the air. Something unspoken, something that seemed to draw them both closer. Velzora turned and walked toward a large, circular platform at the far end of the room. The soft glow of the orbs followed her, casting shadows that danced on the walls like living beings. Ryan took a moment to collect himself before following her, unsure of what was to come next. "Your Majesty." Ryan's voice broke the silence. "What happens now?" Velzora paused at the edge of the platform, her silhouette sharp against the glowing backdrop. She glanced back over her shoulder, her golden eyes reflecting a deep intensity. There was something more in her expression now, something challenging. "You have seen our history," she said, her voice calm but with an edge to it. "You have felt the weight of our survival, and you understand the bond we share. But now, I must ask you something more." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" The queen turned to face him fully. "To be honored in this way is not without its challenges. You have walked in our past, felt our pain, and seen our triumphs. But there is more to understand. If you are to stand by us, you must prove you can endure the same trials we have." Ryan's pulse quickened. He had known this moment would come, some sort of test. Zokari were warriors by nature, and nothing came easily to them. But he hadn't expected this. He had already been granted the gift of honor, which seemed to him to be the greatest sign of respect he could receive. Now he was being asked to prove himself worthy of it. "What do you ask of me?" Ryan asked, keeping his voice steady. Velzora's gaze was unwavering. "You will face a trial, Ryan Hale. A challenge designed to test your strength, your resolve, and your ability to endure. It is a test of your spirit." Ryan took a deep breath. He had always been taught that challenges were part of any great journey, and this one seemed no different. He was here to prove humanity's worth in the eyes of the Zokari, and he would not back down. "I accept," he said, his voice strong and clear. A faint smile touched Velzora's lips. "Good. Then let us begin." She stepped onto the platform, and the air around them seemed to grow even thicker. The orbs dimmed, and a low hum filled the room, growing louder with each passing second. Ryan stepped forward, but before he could reach her, a bright light flared from the platform, and the space between them seemed to shift. The next thing he knew, Ryan was no longer in the chamber at all. He found himself standing in a vast, desolate landscape, a place that seemed both familiar and foreign. The sky above was dark, with storm clouds swirling ominously. The ground beneath his boots was cracked, and the wind howled through the empty plains. He looked around, trying to make sense of his surroundings. There were no signs of life, no sound except for the fierce wind. And then, as if from nowhere, the voice of Queen Velzora echoed in the distance. "This is where we begin," she said, her voice carrying over the empty landscape. "This is the land where my people were born, where we fought for survival." Ryan squinted into the distance, trying to locate her, but the landscape seemed to stretch on forever, without end. "Your challenge is simple," Velzora's voice continued. "Survive, face the trials of this land, and return to me." Ryan's heart raced. He was being asked to survive in an alien world, a place that seemed to mirror the struggles the Zokari had once faced. The wind howled louder now, and a deep rumble of thunder cracked through the sky. With no clear path ahead, Ryan knew he had no choice but to move forward. The trial had begun. He walked through the desolate plains, each step testing his resolve. The air was thin, and the heat was intense. The ground beneath him seemed to shift and crack, as though it might swallow him whole at any moment. But Ryan was determined. He had faced challenges before. He would face this one too. As he journeyed deeper into the land, the storm clouds overhead grew darker, and the wind began to whip around him with greater force. Suddenly, he heard a growl, a low, rumbling sound that seemed to come from the very earth itself. Ryan spun around, his instincts kicking in. From the shadows of the rocks, massive creatures appeared, creatures with thick, armored hides and glowing eyes. They were like nothing he had ever seen before, predators designed to hunt and survive in the harshest conditions. His heart raced, but Ryan stood firm. This was the test. He had to survive, not just against the land itself, but against the dangers that lived within it. These creatures, these hunters, were part of the Zokari's history. They were the predators that had shaped the Zokari into the warriors they were today. Ryan took a deep breath, reaching for the survival gear at his belt. He wasn't alone here. He had his training, his wits, and his will to survive. He could do this. He would do this. He readied himself as the creatures began to circle, their eyes never leaving him. The trial had begun, and it was up to him to prove his worth. Ryan's heart pounded as the massive creatures circled him, their glowing eyes fixed on him like hungry predators. The wind howled louder, whipping sand and dust into the air. The land around him was barren, the earth cracked and dry beneath his boots. These creatures, with their thick, armored hides and sharp claws, were clearly built for this harsh environment. Ryan swallowed hard, trying to steady his breathing. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a test. A test given by Queen Veldzora herself. He had to survive, or he would fail. And failure wasn't an option. The creatures moved closer, their massive feet stomping on the cracked earth with heavy, ground-shaking steps. Their mouths were wide open, showing rows of sharp teeth, and their low growls sent a shiver down Ryan's spine. "Think, Ryan. Think," he muttered to himself. He scanned the area around him. The creatures weren't attacking yet. They were waiting, probably testing him. He needed to act fast, or he would be overwhelmed. The last thing he wanted was to get cornered in this open space. He needed to stay mobile. Ryan took a deep breath, focusing on his training. He reached for the small survival knife at his belt and held it firmly in his hand. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. As one of the creatures lunged at him, Ryan instinctively rolled to the side, barely avoiding its jaws as they snapped shut where he had been standing just seconds before. The creature's roar echoed in the desolate land, and Ryan used the moment of distraction to push himself to his feet. He couldn't afford to be caught off guard again. He had to fight back, not just to survive, but to prove his worth to the Zokari people. The first creature was already recovering from its miss, its sharp claws scraping against the ground as it prepared to strike again. Ryan's eyes darted around, searching for any advantage, any way to gain the upper hand. Then he saw it, a rock formation to his right. The sharp edges of the rocks looked jagged and dangerous, perfect for creating a barricade or maybe even as a trap. Ryan made a split-second decision and sprinted toward the rocks, hoping the creatures would follow. He didn't have much time. As he reached the rocks, Ryan ducked behind a large boulder and paused, trying to listen for the creatures. He could hear their heavy breathing and the sound of claws dragging against the ground. He held his breath, waiting for the right moment. Suddenly, one of the creatures rounded the corner of the rock formation, its glowing eyes searching for him. Ryan didn't hesitate. With a quick, decisive motion, he hurled the survival knife at the creature. It wasn't a perfect throw, but it struck the creature's hide just enough to get its attention. The creature roared in anger, turning toward him with a speed that surprised Ryan. But Ryan was already on the move, darting out from his hiding place and running to the other side of the rocks. The creature chased after him, its massive claws scraping against the earth. Ryan didn't slow down. He needed to keep the creature focused on him, and he needed to tire it out. He zigzagged around the rocks, keeping his distance. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw the second creature moving in from the other side. His stomach tightened. Now he was truly surrounded. There was no time to waste. Ryan had no choice but to take a risk. He sprinted toward the center of the rock formation, hoping that the second creature would follow the first. And it did. As the two creatures closed in on him, Ryan reached the highest point of the rocks. It was narrow, but it gave him an advantage. He had the high ground. The creatures were now below him, looking up at him with hungry eyes. They were confused, unsure of how to get to him. But Ryan knew he couldn't stay up there forever. He needed to make the final move, a decisive strike. He waited for the creatures to come closer, their movements heavy and slow. As they neared, Ryan jumped from his perch, landing behind the first creature. The impact knocked it off balance, and Ryan used the opportunity to drive his knife into the back of the creature's neck. The creature let out a shriek, its body going limp. Ryan quickly rolled away, narrowly avoiding the swipe of the second creature's claws. It roared in frustration, its glowing eyes burning with fury. Ryan was out of time. He knew he had to finish this now. As the second creature lunged at him, he dove forward, dodging its attack and rolling to the side. He sprang to his feet and, with all his strength, shoved the creature into the side of the rock formation. It stumbled, off balance, and Ryan quickly positioned himself for the final strike. With a deep breath, Ryan lunged at the creature, stabbing the knife deep into its side. The creature let out a final growl, its body going limp as it collapsed to the ground. Ryan stood over the two fallen creatures, breathing heavily, his body covered in sweat and dirt. His heart raced as the adrenaline began to fade. He had done it. He had survived. A soft hum filled the air, and the landscape around him began to blur. The wind died down, and the storm clouds above him started to clear. Ryan blinked, and suddenly, he was back in the chamber with Veldzora. The creatures were gone, the harsh landscape replaced by the familiar walls of the Zokari's sacred space. Veldzora stood before him, her expression unreadable. "You have completed the trial," she said, her voice calm. "You have proven your strength and resolve. You are worthy." Ryan's legs felt weak, but he stood tall. "Thank you, Your Majesty." She nodded, her eyes gleaming with something like respect. "You are not like the others, Ryan Hale. You understand what it means to fight, not just for survival, but for something greater. You have earned your place here." Ryan stood in the glowing chamber, his body still aching from the brutal trial he had just faced. The dust from the barren landscape still clung to his clothes, a reminder of the fierce battle he had fought and won. He had survived the creatures of the Zokari homeworld, proven his strength and resilience, but now he felt a strange sense of emptiness. The trial had been a test of survival, but it had also been a journey of self-discovery. Veldzora stood across from him, her eyes watching him with an intensity that made Ryan feel both humbled and proud. She had seen him struggle, seen him push himself past his limits, and she had been watching him every step of the way. "You have passed the trial," she said softly, her voice low but full of meaning. "You have proven yourself worthy, not just in strength, but in spirit. You are not like others who come to us seeking power or glory. You seek understanding." Ryan nodded, still catching his breath. His mind was spinning from the events that had just unfolded. He had faced the creatures, the harsh landscape, and emerged victorious. But the victory didn't feel as sweet as he had imagined. There was something else, something deeper, that he had discovered about himself during the trial. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice steady but with an edge of uncertainty. Veldzora studied him for a long moment before answering. "Now we move to the heart of the Zokari people, the place where our true strength lies. It is a place that only those who are worthy can access. You have earned that right." Ryan's curiosity grew. The heart of the Zokari people. He had no idea what that meant, but he had a feeling that whatever lay ahead would be the most important part of his journey. Veldzora turned toward the far side of the chamber, where an ancient doorway stood, glowing with a soft, pulsing light. It looked old, older than anything Ryan had ever seen, as though it had been there for centuries, perhaps even millennia. She walked toward the doorway, and without turning back, she spoke. "Follow me, Ryan Hale. You will see the truth of our people. You will see why we fight, why we endure. You will understand the bond between us and the humans. It is a bond that has existed for as long as the stars themselves." Ryan didn't hesitate. He followed her through the doorway, stepping into a new world. The air was thick with a heavy, almost sacred energy. As they walked deeper into the space, Ryan noticed the walls, lined with ancient symbols, glowing faintly. The symbols were like nothing he had seen before, a mixture of strange geometric shapes and flowing lines that seemed to move, shifting ever so slightly, as though they were alive. The path led them down a narrow corridor, and the further they went, the stronger the energy became. Ryan could feel it now, a subtle but undeniable pull that seemed to draw him closer to something powerful. Finally, they reached the end of the path. Before them stood a vast, open chamber, much larger than anything Ryan had seen on this world. The walls of the chamber were covered in intricate carvings, telling stories of ancient battles, of Zokari ancestors who had fought to protect their people and their home. At the center of the chamber was a massive stone pedestal, covered in glowing runes. It radiated a sense of unmatched power, like the heart of a living being. Ryan felt a shiver run down his spine as he stepped closer. This is the heart of the Zokari, Veldzora said, her voice reverberating softly in the chamber. This is where our strength comes from. This is the source of our survival, our will to fight, and our bond with the universe. Ryan gazed at the pedestal, trying to absorb the weight of her words. The energy in the room was overwhelming, and he could feel the power of the Zokari people seeping into his very bones. He had thought he understood their struggles, their history, but this place, this chamber, was something far more profound. This is not just a symbol of our strength, Veldzora continued. It is a living force, one that flows through us, one that connects all Zokari to each other and to the world around us. It is a gift, but also a responsibility. Ryan looked at her, his mind racing. He had known that the Zokari were a warrior people, but this was something else entirely. This wasn't just about battle and survival. It was about purpose, about understanding the greater cycle of life and death, the connection between all living things. He understood now. The bond between humans and Zokari was not just a matter of politics or war. It was a shared connection, a shared purpose. Both species had survived against all odds, not just because they were strong, but because they understood the value of that connection. You understand now, Veldzora said, her voice soft with approval. You understand why we fight, why we endure, and why we will never give up. This is the heart of our people, Ryan Hale. And now, it is part of you. Ryan nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words settle within him. He had been chosen to witness the heart of the Zokari, and in doing so, he had gained something far greater than any victory or glory. He had gained a new understanding of the Zokari and of humanity's place in the grand scheme of the universe. As he stood in that chamber, surrounded by the strength and power of the Zokari, he knew one thing for certain: the bond between them was real. And it was a bond that would carry both species forward into the unknown future that awaited them. You said it was a bond, Ryan said, his voice almost a whisper. A bond between the Zokari and the universe. What does that mean? Veldzora turned toward him, her eyes now softer, almost nostalgic. It means that we are never truly alone. It means that our survival is not just a matter of strength, but of balance. We fight because we must, but we also endure because we are connected to the world, to each other, and to everything that has come before us. Ryan stood there in awe, the weight of her words settling over him like a blanket. He had spent so much of his life fighting for survival, for victory, but now he realized that there was more to it than that. The Zokari weren't just fighters. They were part of something greater, a living force that tied them to the universe. The air in the chamber felt thick with energy as Ryan stood before Veldzora, processing the profound understanding he had gained about the Zokari people. The heart of their strength, their connection to the universe. It was a concept that transcended simple survival. It was about purpose, unity, and an understanding of the world in a way Ryan had never imagined. As Veldzora spoke, Ryan couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility. He wasn't just a visitor anymore. He was part of something larger, something that could change the course of history. The bond between the Zokari and humanity wasn't just a fragile alliance. It was a shared future. The walls of the chamber hummed with power, and Ryan took a step back, his mind racing. He could feel the weight of the moment. He wasn't here for a political mission anymore. He was here to witness something monumental, to help guide both species toward a future of cooperation and survival. Veldzora stepped forward, her presence commanding yet calm. Her golden skin shimmered under the chamber's soft light, and her eyes, those eyes that seemed to pierce into his very soul, held a gaze of wisdom that Ryan couldn't fully comprehend. Ryan Hale, she began, her voice steady and unwavering. You now understand the essence of our people. You see the truth behind our strength, and you feel the bond that ties us to the universe. You are not just a diplomat anymore. You are a symbol of what is possible when different worlds come together. Ryan nodded slowly, still feeling the weight of her words. He had come to this planet with one goal in mind: to negotiate with the Zokari and ensure their support in the galactic conflict humanity was facing. But now, that goal seemed small compared to what he had just witnessed. He wasn't here just to make deals. He was here to build a lasting relationship, a partnership that could change everything. "I understand," Ryan said quietly, "and I'm ready to help. But there's still so much I don't know. The Zokari have suffered so much. How do we move forward from here?" Velzora's expression softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of solidarity. "You are not the only one with questions, Ryan. Our people have endured centuries of hardship. We have fought for survival, but we have also lost much. Our numbers have dwindled, and many of our kind have fallen in battle. But what we have now, what we can offer, is a new future." Ryan met her gaze, a sense of determination rising in him. "A future where we stand together. Humanity and the Zokari." Veldzora smiled, though it was a bittersweet expression. "Yes, a future where we fight not only for survival, but for something greater. We are stronger together, Ryan. The bond between us can withstand anything, even the darkness that threatens us all." The room was silent for a moment, and Ryan couldn't help but reflect on how far they had come. Just a short time ago, the idea of the Zokari forming an alliance with humanity had seemed impossible. But now, standing here with Veldzora, he could feel the shift in the air, the shift from distrust and wariness to a growing sense of hope. He wasn't just a human envoy anymore. He was part of this shared destiny. Before Ryan could speak again, the deep hum of the chamber's energy grew louder. Veldzora turned, her face etched with a mix of determination and sorrow. She motioned for Ryan to follow as she moved toward a large circular platform in the center of the room. The platform glowed with an ethereal light, and Ryan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe as they approached it. "This is the sacred conduit," Veldzora explained, her voice now filled with reverence. "It is where we, the Zokari, channel the energy from the heart of our people, from the source of our strength. It is through this conduit that we can communicate with the universe, gain wisdom, and renew our bond with the world around us." Ryan stepped closer, fascinated by the sight before him. The platform seemed to pulse with life, the symbols etched into it glowing brightly as if alive. He reached out, feeling the warmth of the energy radiating from it, and his hand brushed against the surface. A sudden surge of power flowed through him, and for a brief moment, he saw flashes of ancient Zokari history, images of battles fought, of victories and losses, and of the people's deep connection to the cosmos. "This is incredible," Ryan whispered, his heart racing with wonder. Veldzora nodded. "It is through this conduit that we will reach out to humanity. We will extend our hand and offer our strength, not as conquerors, but as allies. Our people are ready to embrace the future, but we need the humans to stand beside us. Together, we can bring peace to this galaxy. Together, we can make a difference." Ryan stood in silence, absorbing the weight of her words. He knew the stakes were high. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and the choices they made now would shape the future of all sentient beings. He could see it now, the potential for a new era, one where humanity and the Zokari work together, united by a common goal. Velzora's voice broke through his thoughts. "You have already proven your worth, Ryan Hale. You have shown us that humans are capable of understanding our ways, of respecting the bond that connects all living things. Now, it is time to act." Ryan met her gaze, a sense of resolve settling in his chest. "I'm ready. Let's make this alliance a reality." Veldzora nodded, her eyes filled with something akin to hope. "Then let us begin." As they stood there, on the edge of something great, Ryan knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The Zokari and humanity were no longer separate. They were allies, bound together by a shared purpose. And together, they would face whatever challenges the universe had in store. The days following Ryan's understanding of the Zokari people's strength and the formation of their new alliance passed quickly. The mood among the Zokari was changing. What had once been uncertainty was now a rising hope, a hope that humanity and the Zokari could achieve something greater together. Ryan had stayed at the Zokari city, training, learning more about their history, culture, and their military tactics. Every day, he saw the warriors train with precision, their movements smooth yet powerful. Their discipline was unlike anything he had seen before. He had been amazed by how deeply connected they were to their world, their people, and their mission. But now, standing at the edge of a great decision, Ryan felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He had arrived in the Zokari city to negotiate peace and form an alliance, but what was being asked of him now was something much bigger. Both humanity and the Zokari were facing an enemy that no one had anticipated, an enemy who cared nothing for their alliances, for their struggles, for their future. It was a threat that could bring them both to the edge of extinction. The Zokari had sensed this coming for years. They had watched the movements of a dark force, one that was spreading through the galaxy like a shadow. It had already wiped out entire planets, civilizations, without hesitation. The creatures who led this force were ruthless, cold, and without mercy. Ryan knew that this was the next step in their journey together. The time had come to take action. Veldzora had called for a council meeting, bringing together the greatest minds, warriors, and leaders of the Zokari, as well as Ryan and his human delegation. It was a crucial moment. The fate of both species depended on what they would decide in this chamber. Ryan entered the large meeting hall, the walls adorned with symbols of the Zokari's victories and sacrifices. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. There was no turning back now. He sat at the head of the table beside Veldzora, his mind focused. He had never imagined that he would be in such a position, the representative of humanity in a decision that could change the fate of the galaxy. Veldzora stood to address the gathering, her voice calm but filled with authority. "We stand at a crossroads," she began. "For centuries, we have fought to protect our people, to survive, to endure. But now, we face a challenge unlike any other. The forces that threaten us are not just a battle for survival. They are a battle for the very essence of life itself." The room was silent, the weight of her words hanging heavy in the air. Ryan looked around at the Zokari warriors and leaders, their eyes sharp and full of purpose. They were ready for battle. But more than that, they were ready for what came after. A future built together, a future where they would stand united. "The enemy we face is not one we can defeat alone," Veldzora continued. "But together, humanity and the Zokari can stand against them. Together, we can push back the darkness." Ryan stood, his voice steady but urgent. "The strength of humanity lies in our resilience," he said, his words echoing in the chamber. "We have faced adversity time and time again, and we have always found a way to fight back. With the Zokari by our side, I know we can win this battle. We will not let the galaxy fall into darkness." The room erupted into murmurs, the weight of his words sinking in. It was clear, the Zokari were ready, and so were humanity's forces. The alliance was not just a diplomatic agreement. It had become a bond, a shared will to survive, to protect their future. As the council deliberated, Ryan couldn't help but think about how far they had come. Just a few weeks ago, he had been a stranger to this world, negotiating for an alliance to defend against a threat that seemed distant and abstract. Now, the enemy was real. They were facing an enemy so powerful, it was almost impossible to comprehend. And yet, there was hope. Hope that the Zokari and humanity, working together, could do the impossible. Velzora's voice broke through his thoughts. "Ryan Hale, you represent humanity in this alliance, and I will not ask you to make this decision alone. Your people must understand what is at stake. The war we are about to face will test us in ways we cannot predict, but it is a war we cannot afford to lose." Ryan nodded. He had already made his decision. It was clear that humanity had to stand with the Zokari. They had to fight, not just for their own survival, but for the survival of the galaxy itself. As the council session continued, the final decision was made. The Alliance would prepare for war. It would be a fight like no other, and they would need every resource, every soldier, every piece of technology at their disposal. Ryan felt the weight of the decision on his shoulders. But now, he wasn't just a diplomat. He was a leader, standing alongside the Zokari, ready to face the challenges ahead. Later that evening, as the stars outside the Zokari city began to twinkle in the sky, Ryan stood with Veldzora on the balcony of the council hall. The night was quiet, but there was a tension in the air, an anticipation of what was to come. "We will win this, Ryan," Veldzora said softly, her eyes focused on the horizon. "I know we will," Ryan replied, his voice filled with confidence. Together, the future of humanity and the Zokari had been sealed that day. The battle ahead would not be easy, but it was a battle they would face together, side by side. And no matter what, they would not let the darkness swallow them. The final preparations for the battle were underway, and the air in the Zokari command center was thick with tension. The alliance between humanity and the Zokari was no longer just a concept. It was a reality. Together, they had formed a formidable force, a unity that transcended species, a unity that promised hope in the face of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Ryan stood on the bridge of the Zokari flagship, gazing out at the dark expanse of space. The stars flickered in the distance, distant beacons of light against the vast emptiness. But the galaxy was not as peaceful as it once seemed. The enemy, a ruthless and destructive force known as the Urath, had already laid waste to countless worlds. Their ships, massive and impenetrable, had advanced toward the heart of the galaxy, leaving destruction in their wake. The Zokari had tracked their movements for years, but now, the final confrontation was imminent. Veldzora, standing beside Ryan, watched the stars with a look of determination on her face. "This is it," she said, her voice steady yet filled with an edge of solemnity. "We stand at the crossroads of history. Our ancestors fought for survival. Now we fight for the future of the galaxy." Ryan nodded, his thoughts filled with the responsibility of the moment. He had come here as a diplomat, but now he was part of something far greater. The bond between humanity and the Zokari had become the foundation for their survival. Together, they had forged a weapon of unimaginable power. It wasn't just technology or strength that gave them hope. It was their unity, their shared purpose. "Ready the fleet," Ryan said, his voice resolute. He had never imagined that the weight of leadership would be so heavy, but today it felt natural. The alliance wasn't just about survival. It was about proving that hope, cooperation, and courage could overcome even the most insurmountable odds. The Zokari fleet, a massive array of ships powered by the energy of their world, was now in formation, ready to strike. On the human side, the fleet had gathered as well. Hundreds of ships, with soldiers from Earth and its colonies, stood ready to fight alongside the Zokari. This was no longer a battle of individual nations or planets. It was a battle for the very survival of all life in the galaxy. As the hours passed, Ryan could feel the anticipation building. The Urath fleet was drawing closer, and every moment brought them closer to the final confrontation. The humans and Zokari had trained together for weeks, their forces familiar with each other's tactics and technology. They had to be united in purpose, in action, and in spirit. The time for hesitation had passed. The call came. The Urath had arrived. On the Zokari flagship, the alarms blared, signaling the start of the battle. The crew moved quickly, their movements sharp and precise, just like the warriors they were. Ryan stood with Veldzora, his gaze focused on the holoscreen as the Urath fleet loomed large in the distance. "They're massive," Ryan muttered, awe in his voice. The Urath ships were like nothing he had ever seen before, towering dark vessels that seemed to swallow the light around them. Veldzora's expression was hard, her gaze never wavering. "We will face them together. They may be strong, but they are not invincible. The power of our unity is greater than their might." Ryan's heart raced. He had no doubt that the Zokari were right. The enemy was ruthless, but they had something the Urath could never understand: the will to fight for a future. The Urath sought only to destroy, to claim the galaxy for themselves, but the humans and Zokari fought for life, for hope, for everything they held dear. The battle began with a deafening roar as the fleets collided. Laser fire lit up the dark void of space as the two forces met in an explosion of color and sound. Ryan could feel the shockwaves reverberating through the ship, but he stood firm. The alliance had been forged for moments like this, and he would not let fear take hold. The Zokari ships were a marvel of design, their sleek, powerful forms darting through the chaos with precision. Ryan's heart swelled with pride as he watched them in action. The humans were fighting just as fiercely, their ships maneuvering with expert skill. The combined force was unstoppable. For hours, the battle raged on, the two fleets locked in a deadly dance. Ryan watched as one of the Zokari ships took a direct hit. It was devastating, but the crew did not falter. They continued to fight, their determination unwavering. At the center of it all, Ryan knew what had to be done. They couldn't win this battle by brute force alone. It was time for the final push. The Zokari had a weapon, a massive energy pulse that could pierce the heart of the Urath fleet. It had been designed to be their last resort, but now it was their only hope. Ryan gave the order. "Activate the pulse," he commanded. The Zokari flagship fired the energy pulse, and the resulting shockwave tore through the Urath fleet like a hammer striking glass. The shockwave disrupted their ships, throwing them into disarray. But the Urath were not defeated yet. They retaliated with everything they had, but it was too late. The combined strength of the Zokari and humanity was too much. The Urath fleet, once a symbol of fear, began to crumble. In the chaos, Ryan felt a wave of relief. They were winning. They were truly winning. As the last of the Urath ships were destroyed, the battlefield fell silent. The stars twinkled peacefully in the distance, and for the first time in weeks, Ryan allowed himself a breath. The battle had been won, but it was more than just a military victory. It was a victory for hope, for unity, for the promise of a future. Veldzora turned to him, her expression softened, a rare smile on her face. "We did it, Ryan. Together." Ryan nodded, a sense of accomplishment filling his chest. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt full of possibility. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, not as two separate species, but as one united force. As they stood together, looking out at the peaceful stars, Ryan realized one thing: this was just the beginning.